Alright, in this tutorial we'll learn the very basics of Azure architecture, that is like virtual machines which provides the compute power. So these are the agendas. Let's begin with the first task, that is creating an configuration VM. So I'm already logged in to the Azure portal. Let's go to virtual machines, or we can also search here virtual machine. We can write it, since I've used it, it's showing up in the recent part as well. So here again we can also dive into it. So let's click here. Now there are two ways of creating it. One can create by clicking here, or again here. So let's click here, Azure virtual machine, first option. Let's select it. Next we need to select the subscription. Let's leave as is. We'll select one resource group where our resources will reside. Next is the virtual machine name. Let's type it Cloud Guru Amit VM. Then is the region where we want our virtual machine to reside. And then is the availability zones option as well. So we'll keep as is. Now there is an option for selecting the availability zone as per our wish. We can mention or put as per our convenience. So these are like the data centers where we want the VMs. We can also click on multiple, so it will create a multiple two. You can see it's mentioned 2 virtual machines will be created with the names shown above. Since I have given the name Cloud Guru Amit VM, so it's automatically took 1 and 2, right? So let's remove 1. We'll create one because this is just a simple demo. Next is the image. This is also a star mark. If you look, star mark means mandatory things. So this is the software built or the operating system, I can say. So let's select one of them, like 2019 Windows Server data center. Let's go down. Architecture we leave as is. Let's select the size. Let's click on see all sizes. So we'll be using the general purpose. This one, there are many sizes, by the way. So we'll be selecting just the basics, because the more we'll select, the more we'll end up paying it, which we don't want, because it is just a basic tutorial. Let's select B2S standard. Next let's go down. We need one username and password, because if you look at the agenda, we'll be RDPing into the VM as well. So we need one username and password for it. So that's why will create username and password one. Let's give the username Amit, then one long password. So looks good. Next we need to select inbound ports. This is mandatory or essential part of it. Please do not miss it. We are not SSHing this time, but still, like, I'll just show you for the demo, and HTTP port 80 will also open on these 3. Let's leave as is, but please remember, like 3389 just note, because we will RDP after some time from now. Next is the like licensing. We can see cost if we already have existing license for it. Currently we don't have, that's why I'm not checking this one. Next let's select the desk type. So here there are variety of desk type. Premium messages, this will cost definitely more. These are for production, but R is not production. This is just a basic thing we are doing it. So standard SSD local zone redundant is fine for us. Next, delete with the VM, because if you don't need it, it will delete it, because storage will also cost, right, if you don't delete it after the VM gets deleted. Let's go back to next the networking tab. In the networking tab, we'll leave as is, because we have already configured this one, inbound port. This was the essential part. I'm not going much into the public private IP, because it will confuse you more, because we are just getting started with the architecture part. Next, the management, again we'll leave as is. Next is the monitoring tab. So we don't need monitoring for now. We can disable it. And next, go to the advanced tab. This looks good. We don't need any kind of like custom script or bootstrapping for now. Next is the tags. We can additionally add tags like development dev, or any kind of values we can give. It will help us in building as well. So next is the review and create. Everything looks good, so let's proceed with create. Let's wait for some time. Our deployment is in progress. So here we can see what's created and what not. This will blink. Once it's done, this blinking will stop. Then we know that our virtual machine is now up and running and is configured and created. So if we check our agenda, our next task will be to RDP into the VM. So we are done with create and configure. Now let's wait till the deployment gets complete, then we'll RDP into the VM. Alright, we got the message that the deployment is complete. Now let's go to the resource by clicking this button. Now if we look here, we got the connect button. Let's click on connect, then connect, and here we can see we have download the RDP file. So let's click on the download the RDP file. Let's click on keep open file. Now let's click on connect. So as mentioned, we need to remember the password as well while creating the VM. So I have created the username and password as mentioned. Now I'll put the password and click on OK. Don't ask me. Yes. So we are now beginning to RDP. It's just getting started. Things are getting loaded. So this is, you can see our IP as well here. It takes a while to load. Alright, so we have successfully RDP to the instance. So this is how it look. You can have a look later on. So let's close it for now because we have the next task. So we are done with task 1 and 2 RDP. Now let's begin with creating snapshot of the VM which we have running. So the snapshots will be under the, let's collapse this tab, will be under the settings, then disk, and under the disk if you look, this is what the OS disk or is attached. Let's click on it. Now if we look here, create snapshot, let's click here. So there we need to provide one name like cloud snapshot, something like this. Now there are basically two types of snapshot. Incremental is like the delta, that is partial copy will be kind of the backup. Full backup is like the complete backup. It is like the one of, it will be costlier than the incremental definitely. So for this demo I'll be proceeding with the incremental. Now let's click on review and create. There are options for encryption as well. I'm not going much details because it will coming under the storage part. I will be creating like pinning more there. So for this simplicity, let's click on review and create for this. Alright, our validation passed. Let's click on create once again. So once again our deployment is complete. So our snapshot is by the way ready. So there are basically two ways of navigating. One is directly we can go to the resource here. This is the easy way to check the snapshot. See, we can see completion is 100%. The size will be same as your disk. Another way to navigate into the snapshot is to write in the search bar, that is write snapshots. I'll click on the first option and here we have the snapshot as well. So that is how we can navigate or check our snapshot. So I've mentioned cloud snapshot as our name. I can see it. So right, so we are successfully done with now the snapshot part of the VM as well. Now the last part, since we have created so many things, we need to clean up the resources. If you are following along with me, then definitely you need to like clean up the resources, otherwise it will cost you the bill, right? So I don't want you to pay extra additional cost. We'll go to the resource group, open the resource group. Here we have all these things which we have created. If we scroll down here, right, all the VNets on disk, these things. So let's click here, name, then the three dots here on the right hand corner. If you look the more option, we find the option for delete. So it will clean up all the resources. We need to type like delete for confirmation. I'll copy paste this delete even. Let's click on delete. Yes, permanent action cannot be done. So this is how we delete resources. So I think we are done pretty much for this tutorial. Like we have created and configured a VM, Azure VM from the scratch, then RDP into the VM, then we have created one incremental snapshot of the VM, and last but not least we have cleaned up the resources. So I hope you found this virtual machine agenda or the hands-on helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Alright, let's clarify some concepts on virtual machine. We have done the hands-on. Now it's time to check some theory as well. Always mark the keyword so as to arrive at the correct answer. We'll first look at option A and C. Option A and C, if we look, these options are combinations which focuses on especially backup and recovery and not on immediate file access as the question is looking for. So A and C are out. Now let's move to option B. B says Azure File Sync and Azure Blob Container. So I have highlighted the main word in blue, that is Azure Blob Container. So we know that Azure Blob containers aren't designed for file sharing as required by the question. So we'll eliminate option B as well. Now let's move to option D, which we are left out. D says Azure File Share and Azure File Sync. So this option involves creating an Azure File Share, which acts as a cloud-based file server, and using Azure File Sync to synchronize files between the on-premises VM7 and Azure File Share. Users can access files seamlessly even when India branch is offline, right? D is the correct answer. Alrighty. Another question related to virtual machine. We'll first look at option A and B. A says Azure Pricing Calculator, B says Azure Advisor. Azure Pricing Calculator and Azure Advisor doesn't address the problem of virtual machine sizing for VMware workloads. Hence, again, incorrect choice, because the keyword, one of the keyword is like sizing, right? We'll remove this. Let's move to option C. C says Azure Migrate. Azure Migrates provides a workload specific guidance, including VM sizing recommendations. So this can be the potential answer. We'll park this. Let's move to option D. D says Azure Cost Management. Azure Cost Management doesn't offer workload specific virtual machine recommendations required by the question. So we'll eliminate this. We are left out with option C, and it is the correct answer. Okay, this is interesting because it's related to high performance compute. So as a performance related thing, this is one of the important concepts for virtual machine. So we'll look at option A, C and D together. That is Azure Automation, Azure Purview and Azure Lighthouse. These are completely unrelated to high performance compute cluster, hence incorrect choice. Let's remove this. We are left out with option B, that is Azure Cycle Cloud. Azure Cycle Cloud allows to provision and orchestrate HPC infrastructure, including VMs, storage and networking, while integrating with third-party schedulers as required by the question. This looks good. If we look at the official documentation for Azure Cycle Cloud, it's mentioned Azure Cycle Cloud provides the simplest way to manage HPC workload. Just note this word, HPC, high performance compute, using any scheduler like Scrum, Grid Engine, HPC Pack and so on, right? So there's a complete list of it. You can have a read. We'll lock option B in the interest of time. Let's bring the heat to the snow. First look at option A. A says ARM templates. ARM templates are used for deploying infrastructure as code. The problem is that ARM templates cannot enforce restrictions on virtual machine creation based on regions or sizes as required by the question. So this is out. Let's move to option C first. C says conditional access policies. So we have seen in like previous videos like AZ-900 and all. So conditional access policies are like if then else statement. Conditional access policies cannot address virtual machine provisioning or deployment required by the question. The keyword is deployment, right, or provisioning. So conditional access policies cannot do it. This is out. Let's move to option D. D says rollback access control, also known as RBAC. RBAC doesn't provide fine-grained control over VM creation based on a region and sizes. This is what RBAC cannot do. Hence D is out. Let's look at option B and we will lock it. Alright, this is pretty straightforward question. If you have went through my data engineering videos or have done the hands-on for Azure Data Factory, then just by looking at the keyword you might be knowing what is the answer, right? Since the question demands transforming data and using mapping data flow, hence we require an ETL service to meet such requirement. We know that Azure Data Factory is an data engineering service which provides visual interface for extract, transform and load. So that being said, we'll keep option C and reject the rest. If we look at the official documentation, transform data in Delta Lake using mapping data flows, and the prerequisite again we need like to create data factory. So data without data factory ETL operation very difficult in Azure, right? So we'll lock option C, Azure Data Factory, as the correct answer. So please don't go away. Let's meet in part 2 of this series, where we'll be covering hands-on, like theory, deep dive while doing the hands-on, and some quiz to solidify your concepts.